If you're 18 or younger, I promise this video will change the trajectory of your life. I'm Kevin, Exeter-Yale grad, amateur breakdancer, and founder of the Elevated School. Here's 18 life lessons I wish I could share with my teenage self. We'll cover this in 3 parts: foundation, principles, and social emotional growth. Be sure to stick until the end because the last one is by far the most important. Lesson 1, master meta learning. Learn the art of learning. Why? Different challenges require different approaches. Learning vocab in a foreign language is wildly different from learning calculus. While at Yale, I learned 2,500 new vocab words, 2,000 in Portuguese and 500 in Mandarin in just under 6 months. How? By leveraging learning techniques like spacing, interleaving, and physically writing out each word so that I could commit them to long-term memory. But when it comes to calculus, it's useless to memorize formulas. The trick is to learn the concept quickly and then drill practice problems. As you learn to learn, figure out what comes to you more naturally. If you know that you're just fire at memorization, then consider turning this into your superpower and maybe majoring in something like medicine. Lesson number 2, build your daily foundation. 6 non-negotiable habits. Read, write, meditate, exercise, sleep, and eat well. How many people on earth do you actually think read and write every day? What about the percentage of people who sleep 8 hours, eat well, and exercise consistently? Exactly. Do these 6 things and you'll automatically be in the top 1%. Start small. Only have 2 minutes. Bullet journal 3 things that you're grateful for. First time meditating? Just aim for 5 minutes. Make it so simple, it's impossible to say no. Lesson number 3, develop high income skills. Writing, sales, coding, photography or media cinematography, and AI proficiency. Let's take photography, for example. With social media and digital marketing exploding, businesses need visual content constantly. A skilled photographer can make $100 to $300 an hour, not bad for a teenager. And if you're shooting a special event like prom or graduation, you could charge thousands. Even better if you can specialize. For every 1,000 students on campus, I promise there's less than 10 who are actually good with a camera. That could be you. Let's talk a little bit about AI proficiency. Learning to use tools like GPT, Claude, Perplexity, Midjourney, understanding exactly what AI is capable of and what questions to ask. I promise you this can 10x your productivity in literally any field. These days, companies are paying premium salaries for AI literate employees. You can even make a side hustle teaching AI to boomers. Trust me, I've seen it work. And even if you're not in tech, understanding AI is only going to make you more and more useful, arguably indispensable over the next 5 to 10 years. Lesson number 4, fail fast, learn faster. At Exeter, I ran for student council 4 times. I won twice and I lost twice. At Yale, I founded and pitched a food tech startup called Home Cooked to over 20 business competitions. And in the beginning, we kept losing, nonstop. But each failure taught us to improve our pitch, our competitive differentiation, refine our go-to-market strategy. After applying to over 100 business competitions, we ended up winning 12, including the coveted Yale Summer Fellowship. In fact, over an 18-month period, we actually got over $80,000 in non-equity grant funding. Want to know the craziest part? That business totally failed. My junior year at Yale, we had won a bunch of competitions, but we didn't have many customers. And I was hit with the cold, hard, objective reality of the difference between a successful pitch and a successful company. Looking back on it today, I literally couldn't be more thankful that I learned these lessons at 19 instead of 29 or 39. I studied and learned from every single mistake we made, bad business model, missing customer acquisition, and applied it to this current business, Elevated. And man, today, making YouTube videos, helping kids get into their dream school while traveling around the world with my wife and working less than 32 hours a week, this is my dream job. It's a lot easier and less risky actually to fail when you're young. So the takeaway here is to fail early, fail fast, and fail often so that you learn early, learn fast, and learn often. So finally, in turn, you succeed early, succeed fast, and succeed often. Lesson number 5, master money early. If you can't manage $100 or $1,000, you probably can't manage $100,000. Over these last 10 years, I've read dozens of personal finance books, I've started 2 companies, I've made tens of thousands investing, and honestly, here's all you really need to know. Pay yourself first. This means every time you make $1, instantly set aside 20 to 30 cents for savings and investment. If you don't know where to start, just buy the market. SPY, S&P 500, index fund, it all means the same thing. On average, the market will return 7 to 8% a year. So compounded over a 25-year period, that means $10,000 can turn into $68,480. That's nearly a 7x return for doing nothing. You just make your money work for you instead of you working for the money. The last tip I want to share is incredibly simple. Start a retirement account, a Roth IRA, the moment you turn 18. In fact, even better if you can set aside some savings so that you can put it into this account the moment you turn 18, on your 18th birthday. It's honestly mind-blowing to me how many adults haven't done these financial basics. I promise if you do those 3 things, you'll be 90% ahead of people your age, financially speaking. Welcome to part 2. Principles. Lesson 6, swim against the current. Here is a concrete example. When I was applying to Yale, I thought about all the other kids who were also in the same boat. Asian males from a good private boarding school. How could I position myself differently? As it turns out, when you think of a stereotypical Asian dude applying to Harvard or Yale, you might think of like a math prodigy or a STEM genius, but that wasn't me by any means. I focused on learning languages, and I really loved Spanish literature. I studied abroad in Spain. During my junior year, I got a scholarship, and I said that I wanted to be a diplomat when I was older. I also had a few different extracurriculars that kind of aligned with this mission. So I was an Eagle Scout, I did student government, I wrote for the newspaper. So these activities, when put together, became a very compelling case as to why I would make for, a good future diplomat and be interested in a career in international relations. And in fact, when I applied to Yale, my admissions officer literally sent me a handwritten note and wrote that. He said, hey, because of your student council experience, because you're an Eagle Scout, we think you would be an amazing fit at the Jackson Institute. Definitely apply for the global affairs major. And so that's actually why I ended up picking Yale over Princeton. Lesson number 7, develop a lucky reputation. There are actually many different types of luck, a concept coined by legendary investor Naval Ravikant. Type 1 is blind luck, just winning the lottery by pure chance. Type 2 luck comes from hard work, persistence, hustle. This is when you're running around to create your own opportunities, right? If you make 1,000 YouTube videos, chances are one's gonna take off. If you call 1,000 people, chances are you're gonna make 1 sale. However, the most powerful kind of luck is when you build a brand. This way you become a magnet for luck. For instance, let's say you're the best deep sea diver in the world, and whenever somebody finds sunken treasure, guess who they're gonna call? You, because you have this niche specialty and you're the one that can actually help them access and procure the sunken treasure. So guess what? Their type 1 luck just became your luck. This is exactly the same principle I use to build the Elevated brand. There's a lot of different college counselors out there, but we really specialize in storytelling, and we're really young. Also, we're Asian, and there's not a lot of people who kind of exist at the intersection of those 3 things. So that's been our kind of competitive differentiation within this market. Now, when an Asian STEM kid with amazing awards and great extracurriculars wants to get into Harvard, but they have some trouble articulating their story, well, guess who they're gonna call? Lesson number 8, I'm so excited to share this one. Understand win conditions. Every single game has rules. It's up to you to learn them. For instance, I used to love playing League of Legends. And if you want to win a League of Legends game, it really helps to slay the Baron Nashor or the Elder Dragon. In fact, if you kill those monsters, your odds of winning the game are over 80%. Want to get into your dream school, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Princeton, whatever? Literally the same thing. The normal acceptance odds for a regular student are just 5%. But if you buff your profile, if you're the top in your class, and you have a really unique edge or spike, you swim against the current, which was one of the previous principles, lessons, then actually your odds of getting into a top 10 school can be as high as 70, 80%. Trust me, I've been doing this for like the past 5 years as my main job. Lesson number 9, master the art of persuasion. If this is the only thing you learn from this video, I'll actually be pretty happy. Ultimately, sales persuasion boils down to PPP, a framework created by none other than Alex Hormozy. The first P stands for proof. This can be social proof, testimonials, your track record. The second P, promise. What outcome will they deliver? The third P is your plan. How exactly are you going to deliver it? Let's actually take one of the high income skills from earlier, photography, and apply that to the PPP framework. Proof. Here's my portfolio, website, testimonials from 10 happy clients. Promise. I'll capture memories that will make you emotional 20 years from now. Plan. We'll do a 2-hour shoot, I'll edit 50 videos, and I'll send them to you by the end of the week. If you don't love them, you can get your money back. No questions asked. Now, imagine, just for a second, that we made this even stronger by combining it with the previous principle of differentiating yourself, swimming against the current. While other people are doing boring ass graduation photos, you decide to spice things up by throwing in a free bottle of champagne. Then you have the graduating senior open the champagne and you photograph it. They're in their cap, they have their diploma, there's bubbles everywhere, and you get to capture that on camera. Now you've also developed a reputation as the champagne photographer guy. And because of that one little detail, the champagne, you now get to charge $200, $250 more for the exact same shoot. Lesson number 10, the gap versus the gain. It's wild to me how many overachievers, how many people who've made it to the top 1% are honestly kind of miserable because they keep measuring themselves against where they think they should be. Instead, measure yourself against where you started. Success isn't about how much you achieve, guys. It's about how far you've come. The gap focuses on what's missing. This creates frustration and anxiety. The gain focuses on progress. It generates motivation and confidence. Instead of thinking, I only got a B+ instead of an A, focus on how much you learned and how you improved from maybe a B- to a B+ or a C to a B+. Instead of, I'm still not popular, think, I went from eating lunch alone to now having a real friend group. This isn't toxic positivity. It's training your brain to notice progress, which in turn fuels even more progress. The gap creates a scarcity mindset. The gain creates an abundance mindset. Which one do you think leads to better outcomes? Lesson number 11, 10x is easier than 2x. Sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but hear me out. When you challenge yourself and you aim for a 10x improvement, you're forced to completely reimagine your approach. Getting 2x better grades means studying twice as hard, twice as long. But if you're aiming for a 10x improvement, this means radically changing your learning system, time management, who you learn from, how to ask for help. There are very few ways to 10x your wealth, your attractiveness, your odds of getting into your dream school. Maybe less than 5 real strategies total. But there are an infinite number of ways to double your odds, double your chances, and that's precisely the problem. With infinite options, you'll waste time on strategies that don't move the needle. 10x forces clarity. You have to identify the few things that matter and ignore everything else. Lesson 12, gratitude changes your brain. This isn't just feel-good advice, it's neuroscience. 3 gratitudes daily for 21 days creates measurable changes in brain structure. You'll become more optimistic, more resilient, and in turn, more successful. Lesson number 13, not everything deserves your best effort. You have finite energy and attention. Giving 100% to everything, that's a recipe for burnout and mediocrity. The 80-20 rule, sometimes known as the Pareto principle. Identify the 20% of activities that will drive 80% of the results. Give those your best effort. Everything else gets good enough. For me, this was my academics, my literal GPA at Yale. I realized I just needed to give it a 20% effort, 30% sometimes depending on the course to snag that B. This way I could direct my 80% of my energy, intention, towards entrepreneurship. Some of my classmates, they wanted a perfect GPA so that they could go to law school, medical school, totally cool. Me, I was a bit more obsessed over learning to build businesses and sell. In short, the key, be strategic with your mediocrity. Choose where to be average so that you can be exceptional where it matters. Lesson 14, you are not your thoughts. While I was at a meditation retreat in Chiang Mai last year, I spoke to a monk who literally gave me the secret to enlightenment. Our brains produce 60,000 thoughts a day. Many of these are thoughts that we've had before. Some of them are negative and few are useful. My point being, you wouldn't believe every random person you talk to on the street. So why believe every random thought that pops into your head? Practice this. When you notice a negative thought, simply observe it. I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough. This creates distance between you and the thought. You are the observer of the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. Part 3, social emotional growth. Lesson 15, learn to love. Learning to connect, communicate, and care for others is a skill that will compound for decades to come. Some may even argue it is the most essential skill of them all. Here are some concrete examples. Learn to listen without immediately giving advice. Practice expressing your feelings without blaming. Learn to apologize genuinely when you mess up. Do those 3 things and you'll be more emotionally intelligent than 90% of teenagers on this earth. Of course, you're gonna mess up, and that's okay. Nobody expects you to be the perfect partner or friend at 16. But it's important to start learning now, because long-term relationships are the #1 determinant of happiness. Lesson number 16, find your mentors. Seek both sages and siblings, people who are 2 to 3 years ahead of you and people who are 50 years ahead of you. When it comes to navigating school, find siblings. You guys probably already know this, but the best academic advice doesn't typically come from the old, dusty professor. In fact, it's usually from the young TA, or even better, from a friend who just took the class a semester ago. For wealth, both financial, emotional, spiritual, find sages. Those who have already built what you want to build, especially when it comes to building similar types of businesses, or developing spiritual insights and wisdom, or cultivating happiness in long-term relationships. In that case, yeah, talk to the dusty professor. Lesson number 17, know your why. I'll never forget my junior year. It was freezing in New Hampshire. I was at boarding school and it was 2 a.m. and all my good friends were beginning to fade away and pass out, and I just kept studying and studying and studying. I was drawing literal nephrons in the kidney, creating diagrams, writing down notes with my pen and paper so that I could remember them better. And the reason I refused to go to sleep before I mastered the material is because I couldn't stop thinking about my dad. I grew up in suburban Miami. My parents ran a Chinese restaurant, and we were middle class for a really long time, but after the '08 recession, my family entered a ton of debt. And for nearly a decade, our restaurant didn't make a profit. And I just knew that at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., my dad was still working. He was prepping food for the next day. He would be fixing a fridge or a toilet or doing some other errand. And I just knew that if he was working then and giving it his all, I wanted to give it my all too. And that's what motivated me to study. And it wasn't because I enjoyed nephrons or because I wanted to get an A in biology. It wasn't really about the outcome. It was more about the sacrifice. And whenever I thought of my dad, I just found there was a little bit more motivation left, and I could give it 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes. And honestly, when I got into Yale, it was one of the best days of my life, not because I was so happy, but because it was such a win for the whole family. And I feel very blessed that I had a reason like that to keep me going. Which brings me to my last lesson. Love the process. What I just told you with my dad's story, that can only get you so far in the short term. But it's not something that will keep you going for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. In order for that to really happen, you have to love what you're doing. Some of the questions that I think about most often these days are, would I still do what I'm doing if no one was watching? Would I still do what I'm doing if I wasn't paid? And the answer is yes. I really enjoy making videos, even if I'm the only one watching them. I really enjoy writing. And at first I used to obsess over the end results. I always wanted to be an author. In fact, I still dream of becoming a best-selling author. But more than the number of copies that my potential book will sell, it's more about learning to love writing. There's a quote that I love and I think about every single week, and it goes like this: "The man who loves walking will walk further than the man who loves the destination." But try to find that as a teenager, because there are many adults who graduate and they don't have something like that. And now is your sandbox. It's your chance to try new things, to be the fat kid at the dessert table. It's okay if you don't know your purpose. But what I think is not okay is just sitting around and waiting for purpose to hit you like a bolt of lightning. No, guys, you gotta go out, you gotta explore. You have to search for it, because purpose isn't going to be written on the back of a leaf and hit you in the face. You have to put yourself in challenging, uncomfortable, new situations. You have to give yourself the opportunity to discover. Your future self is counting on you. If you enjoyed this video, I have a feeling you might like this one too, about everything I learned at Yale. Remember, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. Second best time is now.